Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landing grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So, Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have no offers accepted if you're not viewing. Just be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class. If you've not been watching my videos, I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff, guys. The roles have been reversed on this evening's live stream. I have wine, Stiggy doesn't.
I have green tea and water. Woohoo!
What? Next
Yeah,
time we'll get a matcha latte or something.
Moonlight Jasmine, I'll have you know, mate.
Who are you? What have you done with Alex Groundwater?
Oh, they make me work. I can't stand it. It just gets in the way of my drinking time.
Right. It's a bit of an unusual one this evening. We are here to discuss whether or not the flailing thing that is the UK economy is being bludgeoned to death on purpose, or
or just accidentally kicked in the teeth whilst it's down. Yeah, who knows?
Or both. So
Yeah.
is it malice or is it incompetence? Or are the incompetent people being used by the malicious people to destroy it? And before we get into it, the purpose of this actually, and the question I really love to discuss, is what can we do about it? Because by all accounts, no amount of voting for anything different changes anything.
No. Well,
So what I'd like to do is set some ground rules, because I know that this is going to spark some passionate debate in the comments, which I'm not going to look at because it's going to be too distracting. And my job here is to be some kind of host. The purpose of this channel is to help the maximum possible number of people who want to get into a home, get into a home. And that involves battling against government policy, because that always works against the housing market, battling against corporate incompetence and manipulation, because that always works against us as punters trying to get a home. And we have to work against the estate agency incompetence, right? And if you can get past like fighting off like a gauntlet, like, oh yeah, government policy, no taxes, and oh god, the corporation's trying to sell me stuff I don't need and tie me into contracts forever, and oh no, now these estate agents are trying to ruin it, and you might eventually be lucky enough to end up in a home. And this channel is here to help anyone, whatever your politics, whatever your religion, whatever your stance. If you are legally occupying your position in the UK, this channel is here to help you get a home, right? Because the moment I deviate from that, it just turns into an absolute fucking shit fight. We just can't do anything, right? So that is the basis of this, is how do we help the largest number of people in the UK who want to own a home get into one? And at the moment, I think most people agree that whatever side you're voting for, whatever your views, it's getting harder, not easier, and people's prospects are getting worse, not better. And it would appear that we're powerless to do anything to stop the mismanagement, whether it is incompetence or malice. We appear powerless to stop it. But more worryingly than that, it would appear that the actual politicians in government are powerless to stop it.
yeah.
That's, I think, what's much more worrying, is that no matter how well-intentioned people stand up and deliver their manifesto for the next election and speak from the heart, and once they're actually in power, it all just goes out the window. And you can call them liars, you can call them incompetent, whatever the reasons are, doesn't really matter. All that matters is it's the same again and again and again, whether it's the Lib Dems promising to scrap student loans or whatever it was, and going back on that once they were in power, whether it's the Tories in 2010 promising to reduce legal migration to below 100,000 a year and doing the exact opposite, whether it's Labour, whether it doesn't matter who they are. My disdain and contempt for the failures of politicians of all sides is equal. And actually, Alex, it's why I don't know if I've said this to you, it's why a long time ago, I actually seriously contemplated what is the potential for making a difference if you do get into politics, if you become an MP, become a minister, maybe even a cabinet, maybe even prime minister. What is the potential to actually change things?
No, I still believe that there is the potential. The problem is you won't get elected more than once because you're going to upset a very large demographic. But there is the potential for change. They're just not brave enough.
Well, according to the videos that Dominic Cummings puts out, it doesn't matter who elects you because the Treasury and the civil service couldn't give a fuck and they're going to do what they like. They just do what they like. True. Right? That's the point, right? The unelected people actually running the country, who are there permanently, do as they please, or they're doing whatever they're doing for whatever reasons they're doing, but whatever they're doing doesn't seem to deviate whoever's in power. Mm. And increasingly to me, it looks like Parliament is literally a sideshow for our entertainment.
As Jamie Murray said, it's a pantomime.
It's literally a pantomime to keep us distracted, to keep us arguing with each other about left versus right, as if it makes a difference. Because I don't know if you agree with this, but as a kid, I can remember left versus right had a tangible difference.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Very real.
That all changed with Tony Blair.
And literally, since the Blair government came into power, left versus right has made no difference for good or bad.
Yep.
It's just set us on a trajectory that hasn't changed, no matter who's in power. And I watch as I'm sure you do, the endless discussions, ruminations, debates, arguments about all of this. Lots of angry people, understandably angry people, blaming all kinds of people, but all to no avail. Literally to no avail. And it's, as a father with children growing up, wondering, right, what's their future? What are their prospects like here?
Yeah. Yeah, but that applies to the whole of Europe. It applies to some degree to places like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, places where if you went back 30 years and you worked anywhere in London, if you worked in IT, you were working with a team of South Africans. If you went into a pub, everyone serving you was an Aussie. If building sites had a lot of Kiwis on them, but everyone came here. Here was the place to be in the 80s and 90s. This was where you then made your money, headed back to Cape Town and built yourself a 4-bedroom property with a year's earnings as an IT contractor. But it's all falling apart. It's falling apart, and America, in many respects, is the worst of all of them. But because it has so many poor and conversely so many rich. And if you're rich in America, what a great life you have. But it is, as I've said it so many times, it's only propped up by the global reserve currency status and the fact, its size helps and its natural resources help. All of those things help. But America's in trouble. I mean, look at the debt. Look at the vast debt it has. Where would you want your kids to grow up now with the sort of future prospects that we had when we were teenagers?
That's a good question.
Where has got that growth coming? Now, you might have said Poland. If you went back 10 years ago, you'd say, well, Christ. And if you look at GDP growth in Poland and you look at salaries, etc., but they've hit that wave of house prices being unaffordable and cost of living very quickly. It took us 40 years, roughly 50 years to get to that point. It's taken Poland roughly 15 years to go from, wow, suddenly we're doing a little bit better, to, hey, we're doing really well, to, oh, crap, we can't afford a house. So where do you pick? Where is that longevity? Because the planet is sped up by the debt that is fueling the first world, and that has spilled out to everywhere except Africa, a few Middle Eastern countries, and a couple of pockets of Asia, but certainly not China.
And South America?
Oh, South America's got so much debt. They were in debt when we were kids. They were Lloyd's Bank nearly went bust because Brazil wasn't paying its loans.
All right. Yeah.
It's tough. Where in the world would you pick? And certainly there is no English-speaking English-speaking country that you would pick.
So now we are going to touch on immigration, but only from the point of view, from the economic standpoint, right? Because a lot of people, immigration is obviously it's the number one topic in the news at the moment for lots of reasons. It's been a hot topic for a long time. It was an election topic in 2010, so going back 15 years, immigration has been a hot topic. Yep. And as you have pointed out many times on this channel, if you don't have a working age population big enough to support your retired population, you're bust.
Yep. Well, or your retired population will die in poverty, which I think you'll find is something that I've suggested is going to happen.
Now, what I find unhelpful in all the debates is the sort of raging opinion with no basis in fact. It just winds everyone up. Everyone gets wound up. Everyone gets angry, left and right, name calling, bah, 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 no progress made whatsoever.
Yeah.
And given the fact that immigration is such a massive topic and has such a big impact in terms of population, in terms of the economy, and you can, off the top of your head, tell us a little bit about what would have happened to the UK economy without the high levels of migration, can't you?
Oh, well, and this is the problem, is for a long time, we had relatively high migration. So as a country, we actually exported our people all the way through until the 70s. And we only started importing people, really, where our immigration outstripped our emigration in the early 80s. But from about 93 onwards, it's just been uncontrolled. But we were still getting pretty high, I have to be careful how I phrase this, high quality immigration. I mean, don't get me wrong. We were bringing in lots of low paid workers to do farm work and pick stuff at season. But in the city and in other cities in the UK, we were getting pretty high quality, well qualified immigrants from countries like France and Poland and so on and so forth. But the Boris wave, unfortunately, is a real thing. And, in the last 5 years, we have just had a vast number of immigrants who, in terms of their contribution to the UK's GDP, as has been shown in lots and lots of different stats, things that you can look up online, they are not net contributors. So although they are growing GDP per capita, they are shrinking GDP. And that is not a good thing. You can't just point at the headline number and say, GDP has grown. That's fantastic. It's only important when you look at it per capita. And the immigration waves over the last 5 years certainly have really not helped that. But if we hadn't had the overall growth in GDP, which the immigration that happened between, the 90s and, say, 2015, if we hadn't had that immigration, which probably didn't add much per capita. In fact, we know it didn't add much per capita to GDP. While per capita per GDP growth used to be 2.4% through the 80s and 90s per year. It dropped to 0.7% after the year 2000. So we know that it wasn't adding much to per capita, but it was adding quite a lot to the overall GDP headline. And that helps us when we go to the global markets and want to borrow money and all that sort of stuff, which guess what? We did a lot of borrowing money from 2008 onwards in particular. And so it helps us to be able to say, look, we're a good bet. Look at our GDP numbers. And that's why you'll see the stupid stories in the press all the time about which EU country has the fastest growing GDP. It's all bollocks. It really is, especially when you realize that GDP is mostly a fudge statistic anyway.
It's like commenting on a race of snails, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's
just the fastest snail growing in this country.
And there's a cheater over in the corner going, I
Yeah.
think I could probably go a bit quicker.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if we hadn't had the immigration, we would have been in this situation much earlier. But that is the point. It's all just can kicking down the road. Just as in 2008 or 2009, really, when they started with QE and dropped interest rates, that wasn't necessarily a good thing, or at least it might have been a good thing in the very short term if they then slowly raised interest rates again and forced us not to take on so much debt and had to look at it and go, okay, maybe 895 billion by the time we've done COVID is a bit too much. That would have been good, but they didn't. They kept that interest rate at 0.5% all the way through from 2009 right up until COVID, after post-COVID. And you sort of go, Jesus, guys, what were you playing at? What difference does it make? Well, what it means is that now, if we had not had the immigration back in 2010 onwards, let's say, we would have many million fewer people in this country to support, and the net effect on GDP per capita would have been minuscule. But it would all have been revealed much earlier. So they just kicked it down. Keep the immigration flowing.
So let me ask you a question, a hypothetical question, right? I want you to imagine that you are the holder of all the UK government debt. You are the creditor. You're the person who's lent the UK all the money that it owes.
Yep.
Okay. And you want your money back. You want your yield payments and you want your bonds paid back at the end of the term. Do you want immigration or not?
Yes. Yeah, it's the only way you're going to keep it running at this point. Unless you can come to me and tell me unless Rachel Reeves comes to me and says, look, we've actually had a total rethink on this. It's dramatic. You might even say Trussian, but we're going to make a change to the way everything happens here. We're going to try this. And please, I know that you've been, your bond yields, you've been making the market nervous, and we've been making them nervous, and the yields have just kept going up and up and up on the long-term bonds. Yeah, well, we'd prefer that would stop, if that's okay. So just trust us. And then you would have 5 years to implement and, see if you could make a difference. But other than that, no, of course, if the status quo remains in terms of the way we run our finances in this country, if I'm holding that debt, I want immigration to continue purely because the overall GDP number goes up and there are more people to spread that load across in terms of tax.
And therein lies, I think, the primary reason why immigration has continued to go up and up and up and up. The money lenders to the government are actually the ones in control. Now, you and I know that there's a huge amount of people expounding about conspiracy theories, pro them, for them, against them, everything else. And I thought it was interesting because I remember the first time I saw this, I was like, really? So there's a UN document, which I think is good, and I just found a really interesting paragraph in it. So first of all, let me just share this, just put this on the screen. This is a United Nations document, which I will also, there it is. Replacement migration. This is 2000, right? This is 21st of March, 2000.
Mm-hmm.
How's that on the screen there? Okay, let's just get it. Let's just, no, there. Actually, that worked, didn't it? Yeah, that works. So replacement migration, is it a solution to declining and aging populations? And it's interesting because you're saying up until 1993 or 94, and then things started to change. And this is 2000. And basically what it identifies quite quickly, and I'll go straight to the page that's relevant. Is that visible on screen or is it cut off?
It's sort of partly cut off, mate.
Okay, hang on. Yeah, let me just. I'll just minimize it a bit. Tell me when you can see all of it. Can you see all of it? Not
no.
Yet? Is that?
Oh.
Let's do that. How about that?
Got it.
Better?
Yeah, perfect.
Right, we'll do it that way. I get it. So this is on. By the way, I'll also put the link to this PDF so that everyone can see it for themselves. Because honestly, the first time I heard about this document, sometimes like, really? There it is. There is the United Nations. Oh no, that's the wrong. That is not where you're going to get it. I can't delete that one either. This is the page where you can download it from. Here it is. Because if you haven't seen this, guys, it is worth having a look. There is the United Nations Digital Library download page for this 170-page document on replacement migration. And on page 67 or thereabouts, it talks about the UK. And it says, so whereas the total fertility rate increased steadily from the 1950s level of 2.2 children per woman to 2.8 children in 1960-65, so the baby boomers, this trend reversed in the decades afterwards, and fertility fell continuously to 1.78 in 1990 to 95, so below the replacement rate. At the same time,
the last time we were at replacement rate of 2.1, and bear in mind, when we were kids, replacement rate was 2.4 because people lived shorter lives, which is why the joke was always 2.4 children. But if you take the modern replacement rate of 2.1 based on our longer lives, we have not been at that replacement rate since the year that we were born. 1972 was the last year we were at the current replacement rate of 2.1 children per woman.
Right. So in other words, the native population has been declining.
Yes.
The birth rates for as long as you and I have been.
53 years. Yes.
You and I have not done enough shagging, Alex. That
no,
is...
well, I'm not sure it's just the shagging. It's definitely the procreating bit.
Anyway, this is really important. What I found fascinating was at the beginning of the 20th century, in 1900, at a time when both fertility and mortality were higher, the support ratio, which is young people to old people, was 13.3 people of working age for each person aged 65. So for everyone aged 65 or older, there were 13 working people in the early 1900s. That ratio declined to 6 in 1950 and declined to 4.1 in 1995. And this is what they're pointing out. It's like this document at the beginning talks about how unless we do something, the whole of the European economy is going to collapse.
Yeah.
That's the point of this document, right? And then it goes through a bunch of scenarios, 5. And I'm going to skip past scenario 1, 2, 3, and 4, because obviously they were not meant for anything other than to make scenario 5 like the only one that would work. Scenario 5 keeps the potential support ratio of working people to retired people at its 1995 level of 4.1. Keeping this ratio would require 60 million migrants between 95 and 2050. Yep. Slightly more than 1 million migrants per year on average. The overall population would reach 136 million in 2050, of which 80 million, or 59%, would be post-95 migrants or their descendants. Right. So I found that interesting because you can go on to read that, right, all you like. And you realize that this is what's going on and what has been going on, and it's why the governments don't really have any, whichever government's in power hasn't stopped this, have they, right?
Yeah.
And it's been happening across Europe because the UN have decided, the UN of all people have decided that this is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And who, when you think about, like, I ask you who holds the debt, right? Who, the people who hold the government debt, and what is the UN funded by? Government money. So, this is not a surprise to anybody, right?
Yeah.
But
you know what the ratio is now.
Who own all the debt are basically deciding what's happening, and the rest of us can go fuck ourselves.
Yeah, and you know what the ratio is now?
No,
it's 4.1 there. Yeah,
yeah,
it's 3.1 now.
Is it?
But it gets better because that includes public sector workers. So given that the public sector workers are paid for by the taxes that are paid, if you were to just take private sector workers, of the 3 people supporting one pensioner, only one of those people is a private sector worker. So it's almost a one-to-one support system.
Okay,
Because 1/3 of the population of the working population is unemployed. 1/3 work for the public sector, and 1/3 work for the private sector. Those numbers are not hard, but that's a very rough estimate.
and the private sector are the ones funding both the public sector and the ones not working.
Correct. Well, does the public sector generate? I mean, does our NHS and
Generate
you know,
profit.
and where does their money come from to pay their salaries?
Yeah. When you put it like that, it's suddenly quite easy for anyone to understand why the country's finances are in such a fragile state.
Yes,
Because
it all can be blamed on the pill.
It
is that simple. The contraceptive pill screwed everything.
The Catholic, or not, as the case may be, the Catholics were right.
Mm-hmm. Every sperm is sacred, mate. Every sperm is great. If a sperm is wasted, God gets quite irate.
And this is when he's not drinking.
Yeah, that's a green tea for you. It makes me very happy.
Yes. Right. Okay. So what I think this explains is it kind of makes sense as to why, if you are the holder of debt, in other words, the actual boss, the people who've lent the government the trillions that it owes.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't care which one of you idiots is in power. You're doing what I say. Because if you don't, we're going to screw you further by making gilt yields go up. So do as you're told. There's a good Tory party. There's a good Labour Party. And according to some people, the Reform Party's already had the tap on the shoulder. You're going to do as we say. Yeah.
Oh, well, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's basically V for Vendetta. Hey, we just need to go back in, Guy Fawkes the Houses of Parliament, start again.
Yeah, but again, I don't think that's going to solve this particular problem, even if you did that. The politicians themselves aren't the problem. The Houses of Parliament have lost whatever actual power they may have once had, has become a sideshow, literally like a pantomime. Genuinely. Yeah. So you burn the pantomime down and all you've done is taken away the distraction. And it explains why we have such... And let me just qualify this statement. It explains why we have such a widespread low bar of the caliber of people in positions of government power, right? In terms of cabinet ministers, that kind of stuff. Because I say that they're low quality, they're low caliber compared to, for example, people running major companies, major banks, even major public sector organizations like the NHS, who are paid double or triple what politicians get paid.
Yeah.
Okay. So someone somewhere, the money people have gone, there's no point paying these guys anymore. It's a waste of money anyway. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to change anything. We make the rules. And the money guys are saying to the guys in Whitehall, you do what we tell you. And again, go and watch Dominic Cummings' video. Again, ignoring who people are, I don't care who said something. I only care if it's true or not. And his videos describing exactly what happens behind the scenes in Whitehall in Number 10 are fascinating. Whatever you think of the guy, they're fascinating videos. Have you seen any of his videos where he talks about the cabinet secretary literally turns up to cabinet meetings because he's got to do that, but ignores everything that's said and then wanders off and does what he's the most powerful person in Downing Street, the cabinet secretary.
No, I haven't watched the video. I think they would depress me too much.
And it goes on. So why would the politicians fight so hard for their political careers and to get elected if actually they're not going to make a difference? Because as we've seen now, they all end up with phenomenal jobs.
Oh, yes. yeah, they're vast sums of money thrown at them on public speaking circuits or hedge funds or whatever it may be, because they're giving access to the people that they met when they were in politics. And you have to say, I mean, the whole money for questions thing was a big issue in the Commons. But as soon as they leave, they're basically opening up doors straight into these back channels for different countries. I mean, if you're head of the Foreign Office, or sorry, you're what's the name of the cabinet position?
The Foreign Secretary?
Yeah, Foreign Secretary. If you're the Foreign Secretary, I mean, just think of the doors you can open up to business after you've left.
Yeah. Absolutely. But I mean, all of that's fine. Okay, great. So where does that leave the British voter? You know, and is Rachel Reeves actually making any difference to anything at all? Does she care about her job, or is she just holding on until she gets fired, and then because she knows she's going to get a nice?
She's making everything worse.
I mean, okay, look, so that's the hot topic, right? She is making things worse. I agree with you. What I'm trying to work out is she trying to make things better, or does she not care? Is she being told what to do by the people, the malicious people?
She's listening to Torsten. That's one. I mean, if you look at his old think tank, to old Torsten Bell, if you look at his think tank, the IHT, the tightening of the gifting rules, which is one of the sort of kites that has been flown over the last few weeks, the land value tax, which in and of itself not necessarily a bad thing, but the way they're talking about applying it and not necessarily removing council tax at the same time is quite interesting. And then the overall wealth taxes. All of these are things that came, you know, or Torsten was very supportive of and advocated from his think tank. But she's been scattergunning everything. We've had a tax on banks as being floated.
Is she the one scattergunning? It's the Treasury releasing it. And that's what Dominic Cummings said. And I've actually got a video clip of him right here explaining it. I'm going to play it right now. I just happened to have this because I saw it earlier, right? Let me just check everyone can see this. You can see that?
Yeah.
Let's just play this because this I find this interesting. Why is it not unmute?
Yeah, and then it goes, and then that's why Starmer is finding that he has meetings, everyone nods and smiles, yeah, Prime Minister, yeah. And then he goes, and then for 2 weeks later, 3 months later, 6 months later, yeah, no one's done anything. Because no one really cares what the Prime Minister thinks. The system just rumbles on with its own priorities. Why has Starmer got himself into the single biggest political disaster of his premiership on winter fuel payments? Was that in his manifesto? No. Did he say he wanted to do it? No. Did Labour MPs want to do it? No. Why did it happen? Happened because it's on the Treasury officials, 30-year-old Treasury officials' priority list. And if you've got non-player characters as prime ministers and as ministers, and a system that operates in this mad way, then the system will put its priorities in front of the ministers and push them out on TV to announce things. And then the rest of the MPs go, where the hell is this coming from? Why are we doing this? We don't understand.
Yeah. That's the point. Like, I literally don't think the MPs have got any idea. The Treasury is releasing these stories, not Rachel Reeves. But she can't say that. She can't say, I didn't authorise that to be put out, or she'd look utterly powerless.
Yeah. Obviously Cummings knows an awful lot about these things. But is he believable? Is he trustworthy in what he says?
If you watch and listen to the things he said, he appears to give a no holds barred, warts and all, just a warts and all account of it.
Well, in which case, then the Treasury are utter, and then they are trying to sink Rachel Reeves, because between the bank tax, the gambling tax, the national insurance on landlords, the inheritance tax tightening, the wealth tax, the capital gains on home resident. I mean, there must have been about 8 new things thrown out into the public arena and covered by multiple newspapers, all in the space of the last few months. And if that's not Rachel Reeves just being incompetent, then it is a Treasury that is trying to make Rachel Reeves look incompetent. So, you know, whichever way you want to take it. And Torsten Bellend, Ed, I can't agree more. He is a bellend. Very frightening bellend as well.
Here's my next question for you. If you were to consider the argument that the World Economic Forum, that wants us all to own nothing and be happy, and is intent on the destruction of wealth for all citizens so that it can control us. If you were to believe that, and if you were the WF, how would you go about the destruction of value for working and middle class people? Like, let's just, again, for the layman, for Joe Public, let's explain. If you wanted to destroy an economy as a malicious actor, like a global technocratic communist type person, here's how you do it. Because what's happening would appear to be very effective.
No, it is. I mean, you want large periods of inflation. You would prefer not to have the wage rises with them, but you know that's still okay. You make sure that everybody can borrow as much as is possible, so that they are tied in with vast debts, and then you will tell them that the inflation is a good thing because actually it's inflating away their debt. So you know that's all great, but the value of their pounds is diminishing, so they therefore become weaker. You raise the minimum wage as high as you can to make it almost the same as the median wage. And the closer you can get and narrow that gap, the less wealth people are actually generating, because that will then just cover their cost of living. So working becomes really something that is not that worthwhile unless you can get a really top paid job. You absolutely promote AI and machine learning as much as you can. And you bring in immigrant workers if you can use lower salaries to undercut and keep the median wage as close to the minimum wage as possible. And then finally, when people who are of an older generation die, you take as much of their wealth as you can and put it back into the state, not to actually increase services. You do it simply to pay off the interest on the debt that you've accrued in order to not provide the services because you've done such a bad job of using the money that you've got efficiently. And if you can do that and make people dependent on debt and universal credit, and at some point potentially even universal basic income, well, boy, do you have control. I don't happen to believe that that is exactly the WEF's agenda. And I do believe that their talk of a great reset when it comes to finances, and you know, you and I have spoken about it many times, and I do think that central bank digital currencies are a natural evolution. And, you know, it wasn't that long ago that we didn't have paper money. You know, if you look in terms of centuries, and technology makes everything move faster. But if you wanted to screw everyone, we are on the right route to do it.
To what end?
And that's my point. That's why I can't believe. I mean, you talk about subjugation. It's okay. Everyone can be controlled. They can keep us in our houses because of fear of violence in the streets. But what does it benefit? Who benefits from that? You know, I just don't see it.
The argument is the bureaucrats.
But how do they
people
benefit?
who highly paid jobs would otherwise no longer be justified.
Well, to be honest, most highly paid jobs these days are not justified. I mean, again, you and I have had this conversation, but if I go back to when I started my, for want of a better word, career, and it was the early 90s. And I remember when I got my first serious project management gig was 1997. I was working for Chase Manhattan Bank, and they gave me a budget, which at the time was a little over 3 million. And that was just for the staff. This was to run a piece of work for them moving premises. And it was unbelievable. I was 25 years old. They didn't know that. It was my first. Yeah.
25-year-old you.
I was 25. I was given 3 million quid. And do you know what? They did not ask me how I didn't have to go back for approvals on how I spent it. If I decided to bring in 10 more contractors for 3 months to do the work overnight, nobody questioned that. I would report each month on how much money I'd spent and whether I was going to do it. Now, that shows responsibility. And you get paid quite big money for being responsible for something. But managers today, when I go into companies and I see all these managers who are at not quite at C-suite, but nearly at C-suite level in big firms or at C-suite level in mid-sized firms, they're being paid $250,000 a year, roughly. But these people don't make decisions. They don't take risks. They don't live or die by their strategy. They bring in Ernst & Young and PricewaterhouseCoopers and Accenture. And that's why they shouldn't be paid $250,000. If you are not making the decision yourself, if you are not risking, Why on earth are you worth £250,000? You're £100,000 guy at best. And
But if someone's going to pay you for it, you're going to take it, aren't you? And I don't think there's anything more addictive than free money.
Yep, you're not wrong.
And people will fight like cats to protect their free money. Because free money, and by that I mean money that you're not earning and don't really deserve, which has just been given to you. I don't mean returns on investments that you've made. That's different. That's free money that you've invested in everything else. I'm talking about you get a job like this, which is worth 100 grand, but you're getting paid 250 grand, and you know you're not worth it. You can't get anywhere else.
No, but that's the problem. These guys believe that they are worth it. They've never seen, many of these people are in their late 30s now or early 40s. They've never seen a time where you were actually responsible. They've never seen a time where you were responsible, and if you got it wrong, you were walked off site, because that's not the way.
That's my biggest frustration with bureaucrats, is that they are absolute experts at never having to shoulder any responsibility for anything.
Yeah,
especially payroll, especially budgets. I mean, look at the people who've done budgets for HS2, that kind of stuff. I mean, what is it now? 300% of a budget, something stupid like that.
Well, yeah. Look at Hinkley Point C. Hinkley Point C was supposed to cost 15 billion.
They just got paid. They just got paid. They don't care. And this is why I'm saying that if the taxpayer doesn't want to have to pay more taxes, you need cost control in government projects by people who know how to do cost control. And by that I mean not just cutting all the costs and then killing the project because there's no money to actually do the project. Because I've seen both happen, right? I've seen people do that. I've seen people go, no, cut the cost, and then go, why is the whole project collapsed? Right? Yeah. This is why cost control is actually a very highly valued skill, because cost control is getting it right, knowing where to spend the money where you're getting the value for it, and where to stop spending the money because you're not getting the value for it. Right? Yep. That kind of cost control, which I have seen, by the way, I witnessed it firsthand in, of all places, a casino.
They're pretty good with money.
They're pretty fucking good at making money, aren't they? Right?
Yep.
I've witnessed cost control in the casino. It was extraordinary because I was managing a singer, because I've done a few different jobs in my time. And this singer was booked by the casino it was in Birmingham. It was the Bull Ring, I think. And there was a casino in there. And I negotiated they paid well, right? They were happy to invest in paying for the entertainment and make sure that the band and the singer and the accommodation and everything else. And there was no haggling on, okay, cool, that's the deal. Great, we're going to book you, we're happy to pay for that. And included in the deal was food and drink. And it was I think it was a 2-night. It was a Friday and a Saturday night, right? And on the Friday night, the band and the singer went free food and drinks. Okay. And they ordered the best food on the menu, and they ordered cocktails all night.
Yeah.
Because you would, right? If you're a band and you're given a free bar and free food. And when they turned up for the gig the second night, there was a note from the casino's finance director saying, burgers or pasta, wine or beer, no more.
Yep.
And I remember thinking to myself, that is finger on the pulse financial control, right? This is a casino making how many millions it makes. And a finance director spotted that the entertainment budget went over last night and has dealt with it the next day. And if you have that kind of cost control acting on behalf of taxpayer funded projects, we would be living in a very, very different country.
Yeah. I mean, the waste that has happened in this country over, well, generations, but certainly decades. And this is,
But there are too many people on the take from that no cost control budget of just spaffing the money, and they will, understandably, they will squeal if there's any measure of, hang on a second, no, that's a waste of money.
But this is okay. So here is where I'm confused, and I've been confused since I was quite young. I'm easily confused, obviously. I remember because I was I was a bell end, to use that Torsten thing. I thought that I was terribly honest and honourable, and you didn't fiddle your expenses, and you didn't do this, and you declared everything had to be down the line, and that was the way. It was the way I was brought up. I couldn't escape it if I wanted to. There was no grey area. There was no potential fiddling. And I remember looking around at people who were permanent employees, and they were stuffing the company left, right, and centre. They were stuffing them for, I had to travel. It's like, well, you didn't have to drive. You just did it. Now you've claimed all that. And so you're claiming £1,000 every couple of months in car expenses that you don't need. And there were so many fiddles going on. I mean, there were lots of them, but they were relatively low level, to the point where managers would go out for dinner and take a team, and they would blow thousands of pounds on these dinners. And you always went, well, that was a little excessive. And the worst one I saw was at Cisco. And it was because the company had grown so fast. It grew from about 100 people in Europe to around 10,000 people in Europe in the space of 6 years. And so we went to do a project in Israel. And anyway, it needed 3 people. 15 people went because there was a dive center nearby. All of it was expensed on the company thing. And I came back and I wrote a full report on this and just said, it's ridiculous. You're running this company like a country club. And they did lose 80% of their share value shortly afterwards. However, projects in the 80s and 90s, much as I'm not suggesting people weren't fiddling, they were a little bit. And I'm not suggesting that, they were run any better than they are today. But they seemed to be more successful.
Yeah.
Whereas when I speak to people today and they're running big projects, there are so many rules and regulations, whether it's Sarbanes-Oxley, whether it's the whole, HMRC have changed the expensing rules, all this sort of stuff. All those little fiddles have pretty much gone. Everyone I work with now, I never see, and I'm quite good at spotting a fiddle. I don't see them. I don't see them. But there seems to be an enormous amount of waste, and the projects are not running as well or as efficiently, and they're not as successful. And you go, well, how is that possible? Where is it going wrong? If it's not venal, if it's not brown envelopes and people siphoning money off, why isn't it going as well as it was 40 years ago, when people were literally handing around brown paper envelopes? And the only conclusion I could come to is our culture and society has changed so much that we have given what used to be back office functions like HR and legal and so on that supported the business a leading role. And they have created so much regulation that actually nothing is done efficiently anymore, from hiring all the way through to implementation.
And you and I grew up in a time when delivery was what counted, the results. Nothing else fucking mattered. Did you deliver on time? Did you get the results? No, you fucking lied.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the workplace culture. And the problem was the minority of dickhead bosses that would abuse their position as an employer and fire people unfairly, right? They fucked it for everyone else. And that's why, understandably, right? Because if you get fired unfairly, that's not okay. It's not fucking okay to be fired unfairly. But at the same time, as an employer myself, right, as a small medium business employer for 30-something years, and I've seen pretty much every scenario that comes along in that challenge, in the employee-employer challenge, it's become an absolute snake pit. Like, I just put a job ad out today.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, fucking hell. Is the wording in the ad going to get me into trouble? I actually I did put in the ad, but I took out no snowflakes. But I took that out of the ad.
Yeah.
There's no point paying someone who comes to work, bursts into tears, and has to go home.
Yes.
There's no point hiring that person. I mean, I feel sorry for them, but when you're funding a company with your own money and you're funding it trying to get it somewhere, you can't afford to fucking pay people who can't deliver results. Nope. And that's what the government doesn't understand. Have we settled this way? So is it incompetence or is it malice or is it?
I'm still incompetent.
Yeah. I think
And actually, I'll refine that. It's not even just incompetence. It is a system which, as you've just described, at every level has been penetrated by people who shouldn't really be penetrating anything, for the good of the gene pool. But we've built systems that are so, and I don't mean the word inclusive in the way it's normally used in the press, but they're so encompassing that they just don't work. And it makes everyone incompetent, because it's almost impossible to drive through something that is actually good and efficient.
Paddy has put a comment up saying the problems this channel talks about is solved by halting all forms of immigration. But Pat, I don't know if you heard at the start of the video, without that immigration, the country's economy would have collapsed a long time ago. So halting all forms of migration is not an answer. It doesn't actually solve the problems, does it?
Well, unless you just want to lance the boil and bring it to a head as quickly as possible, and in which case we should have bloody done it back in 2008.
So what happens in that scenario?
Well, the same that's going to happen in any scenario. It's all going to go horribly, horribly, badly wrong, and we're going to have to rise from the ashes.
Okay.
There is no scenario that I can think of where all of this just settles gently into a feather bed, and then we bounce up and go, yeah, it's okay, we're all right again. All the debt's gone away. We're having babies. Houses are a good price. Everything's good. My job's paying me lots.
So you're right, and I couldn't agree with you more. I cannot see a way out of this, or through it, or even through it. It's an inexorable slide into oblivion and misery.
So you may as well embrace it fast. I mean, I've been saying this, I've been advocating this for coming up for 20 years, because 2004 I first went, hang on a second, this all looks a bit toppy. But if we'd just taken the pain then, it wouldn't have been that painful. And if we'd taken it in 2009, it would have been bad. And it would have been a bit like the early 90s, and there would have been lots of people in negative equity and this sort of stuff. But we survived the early 90s.
Yeah.
But we didn't. And then to top it all off, the cherry on the lovely glacé cake is COVID. Another 400 billion of money printing, etc. And, that just at that point you go, oh no, this parrot is deceased. This is a dead parrot. That is 2 Monty Python references in one chat. We're doing well today.
So, all right. If I'm watching this channel now, I'm thinking, oh, mate, thanks a lot. We came here for some hope. Give us some hope. How do we get, what is our hope? Because, I mean, I'm stuffed. I've committed myself, my career, my family, my future to solving the UK's housing crisis, whatever else happens. So I've got to find a way through and find a future for my kids here. And I know not everybody's going to, and I agree with you that the death in poverty, of which you speak so often, is genuinely inevitable, unless they suddenly get humanoid robots that can do care at 1/20th of the cost of care, which has all kinds of other horrible ramifications, I know. But unless they can suddenly find a way to make food and shelter and basic care virtually zero cost.
And we're back to CBDCs and robots and machine learning. Oh, seriously.
This is perfect. All we need now is the 4 Yorkshiremen.
when I were a lad.
When I were a lad, it was so cold, we used to sit in a box, sit around a
box? You had a box?
Luxury. But my favourite line of that sketch was, when we used to sit on a candle if it was cold, we used to light it. Oh wow. Freddie Moses says lots of people from the UK are going to end up being au pairs in China for pennies.
He's not wrong.
Really?
Well, actually he is wrong, because the Chinese have a population issue almost as bad as us. They've stopped shagging and having kids as well.
The 4 Yorkshiremen of the apocalypse, that's right. Okay. I also think to be fair, going back to the topic of tonight's discussion, does it matter whether it's malice or incompetence? Because either way, what the hell do we do about it?
Yeah, exactly. It's irrelevant in most respects, unless you are looking for somebody to point and pin the whole thing on. All that matters is what the chances are for you, your family, the nation, and of course all the rest of the nations that are caught up in this. Yeah,
I think that the amount of energy expended on complaining about this, which I understand, would be better off directed at, well, let's make sure that we handle it as best as we can and try and make lemonade out of the lemon somehow.
Yeah.
And it can be done. It can be done.
Time and time again, though, we go the wrong direction. I mean, we've discussed, if you would simply to tighten the lending policies for mortgages, that's simple. What you're going to do is, yes, you're going to mean that there will be a group of people who may have to stay in the home that they bought recently for a longer period of time because they simply can't sell it because nobody's got the money to buy it. And you're going to mean that older people will have to reduce their asking price to sell their house, or when it goes through probate, whatever that may be. But you will eventually, if not flatline, reduce the house prices to a multiple of wages which is reasonable, because no one could possibly claim that, given the current UK wages, that the housing multiples, and don't get me wrong, there are places in the UK, if you want to live up north in the northeast, there are still places where the housing multiples are quite reasonable. But if you are living in the southeast, or if you have to live in London, God forbid, then it's just not possible. And given that so much of our job market is based around here, what are you going to do? But we go the opposite way. No, we'll have a scheme to help you buy. We'll loosen the lending criteria. Every time it's the wrong decision.
Yeah. It is kick the can, float the boat, pump it up. Yeah, I agree. And I'm just looking at the comments again, and some people are talking about, what can you do? Some people are saying, well, you can buy Bitcoin and gold to offset the problem with the economy if you're saving. And I've actually been quietly looking at both of those things. And in my mind, they both come with risks. It's very difficult my motto, as I've said on the channel right from the start, has always been prepare for the worst, hope for the best. But when you prepare for the worst in the context that we're discussing tonight, it's really ugly. It's really ugly. Like, really not good at all. Like, and if hypothetically speaking, you end up with an authoritarian technocracy that can control your access to the internet and everything else, how good is your Bitcoin at that point?
Yep.
And I know everyone's got answers about, oh, you do this, you do that, you do the other, you have offline, cold storage, everything else. But if you end the worst case scenario, right? The worst case scenario, not what's likely, not what's probably going to happen, the actual worst case scenario where there is this total authoritarianism and we end up being controlled, as some of the people who've talked about this have said, you end up being controlled, social score. There was actually, I saw a clip of a video a few days ago with Yuval Noah Harari, who's now a WEF spokesperson, talking openly about how social credit scoring is going to be, your behavior will earn you credits.
Yes, that's the same as it does in China.
And if you behave well, you get credits and you can use those credits elsewhere. And yes, it's total authoritarianism and total control, but hey, it's better than this.
Yeah.
I think you can divide the world into two groups of people. Those that love freedom and those that love to be taken care of at the expense of their freedom.
No. Okay, so here's an example for you. I sort of agree, but there is a way you could influence that, and the way is this. Do you remember when private healthcare companies, one or two of them, brought out a new scheme, which was, if you wear this fitness tracker watch, and we can see that during the week you're doing X steps or this much exercise, and we can see that your body mass index and all this sort of stuff is this, then we will reduce your premiums and your health insurance will be cheaper. And you go, well, okay, so first of all, I'm signing up to allow you to have access to basically my entire daily routine, effectively. If I was a data analyst, I'd go, well, I know when you're scared. I know when you're happy. I know when you're shagging someone. I know when you're asleep. I know everything with the data from your watch. But let's ignore that. Let's say you're happy with that. You're in that group that like to be controlled because you get a benefit from it. Of course, the converse is also true. If you don't do the exercise, etc., then your premium goes up, and it goes up to the point where you can no longer afford health insurance. So suddenly you can become a member of one group that you never wanted to become a member of, simply because you have no other alternative. So when you, as a smoking fat person, turn up and go, I'd like health insurance, please, and they go, fuck off, that'll be 10 grand a month, sir. But if you put this tracker on and you lose 65 kilos and you give up smoking and you do a mini, triathlon, then actually we'll drop it down to a mere £300 a month. How does that sound, sir? And you see, people will be forced into becoming a member of the compliant group. It will be harder and harder. We saw it with COVID, with the injections. It becomes harder and harder to stay out of the compliant group. You have to be actively quite a bolshy bastard to not get sucked in.
Yeah, that's true. But again, some people would still go, I'd rather take my chances and have freedom. Rather
yeah, well, yeah. Hello.
Hi. But I also, where I think a lot of the problems arise is that the people who do capitulate and resign themselves to the system of which you speak, which is, you don't have to do this, but your life's going to be pretty fucking difficult if you don't.
Yeah.
So you sign up to everything. Then you see the people who haven't and who continue to enjoy freedom, and you get angry and jealous, not of their money, but of their freedom. And you see people who've got lots of money but no freedom, jealous and angry about people who've got freedom, even if they haven't got that much money.
Absolutely. And that's why they get so nasty about it. Again, saw it over COVID.
I remember the first time I ever saw it, right? Because I was in the city, futures broker. That was a fascinating few years of my life. I learned so much about the global economy, commodities, foreign exchange, government interest rates, bonds, all of it. Fascinating. And it was in the days when it was big open outcry pits. Really good fun. And I can see Kicking Mustangs in the comments. He's watching. He was there back in the day too. And then I got fired because I'm not compliant enough. And I thought, okay, just for the summer, because it was all of my friends were just finishing university. And we're going to have a whole summer of parties. And I thought to myself, I cannot be trapped in an office in London while all my mates are just partying in the summer. I've got to find something that I can do that's going to mean that I'm earning money, working, but have the flexibility to go and enjoy this amazing summer of fun. And so I just resumed something I'd done in my teens, which I went around knocking on people's doors and cleaning their cars for them. But I was a bit more grown up, and it suddenly turned into repeat business. And people who said, 9 out of 10 people said, no, off you go. 1 out of 10 said, yeah, that's great. Clean my car. And then I did a good job. Then, oh, come back next week. And before I knew it, I had a round and I had a business and I had to employ people. And I got a hand car. And it turned into a real business. And I was 23 years old, employing 16 people with a car washing empire that included a contract with a big Volkswagen dealership in Crawley and a hand car wash at Crawley Station. This is back in the 90s. And a mobile unit going around in a Land Rover Defender with water butts in the back, doing mobile clients. I had this car wash empire when I was 23 years old. And I would frequently evenings go up and see friends in London and go to dinner parties. And then going to dinner parties with lots of my old mates from the city, right? And friends of mine from school in the city. And I'll never forget one night, it was Mansion Block near Fulham, on the Fulham Palace Road. And someone said, so what are you doing now, Charlie? I went, I'm washing cars. And they sort of went, oh, tell us about that then. I said, well, I was in the city with you guys, got fired. I'm doing this now. And there was a really bizarre reaction, which is that it was this sort of, we want to laugh and sneer at you for being a car washer, but something about what you're doing is annoyingly appealing. Your freedom. You're coming and going as you please, and you don't have a boss. I'll never forget the reaction. Like a few of them, like it really bothered them. It was the first time I noticed it. Like, no, I'm on my own now. Got staff, got site, got this, got that. Just, and it just kind of happened because all you have to do, by the way, the secret in life to being, whether you want to be successful as an employee or whether you want to be successful as a self-employed person providing a service, is just, and it is this fucking simple, be reliable. Nothing more. Don't have to be outstanding. Employers and clients will choose reliable over outstanding every day of the week. Every day of the week. Be reliable. That's all I was. I was reliable. I think I was well, and I got recommended, and it just snowballed really quickly. And I didn't, unlike my employers, I didn't tell my customers to fuck off.
Yes. There's something about that that's easier. It's easier not to tell customers to fuck off. It's very easy to tell employers to fuck off.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. I did such an amazing. I had the most bizarrely diverse exposure to different kinds of employment over a period of time. But that's a story for another day. So yeah, do you know what it comes down to? If you want to survive in this environment, whether you're employed or self-employed, work hard, be reliable, save money, live within your means, and if you do those things, you'll be okay. Do you agree?
Yeah, I would love to agree with that. That sounds like perfectly reasonable and sound advice.
Is there a bug going?
Yeah. I mean, I've worked with people who were very reliable, who did save money. They didn't live beyond their means. They liked a caravan holiday in London. In England. They didn't live in London. They lived out near Basingstoke, but they worked for a top blue chip firm. They earned good money. And they still got fucked through no fault of their own, just because an absolute bastard CIO decided to outsource the entire IT department. And they did it right at the time where we were heading into mass unemployment in 2010, 2011. And these poor bastards were out, some of them, for a year to 2 years. And they weren't contractors, they were permies. They wanted to get another permanent job, and there were none. So then they tried contracting, only to discover there weren't many contracts. But if they got a contract, their next permanent employer looked at them funny because they'd been contracting, and therefore they were shifty bastards who weren't trustworthy. And I had to talk these guys through, months of this stuff. And he just went, "You've done nothing. You've done nothing wrong. And yet you have been shafted royally."
And that right there, for me, is the biggest single decision maker as to why, if the opportunity is open to work for yourself, that can never happen to you.
Well, you can still be unemployed, but you can't be unemployed and blaming someone for screwing you.
No, obviously it depends. If you've got one client, then you're not really self-employed anyway. But if you have a diverse range of clients, and unless you're really shit, if you're no good at what you do, then fine, you're not going to stay in business. But if you are decently good and reliable at what you do, and you have a spread of clients, so no one client more than 25% of your business,
that just doesn't work for most contractors. When you're
as a contractor, I agree, but as a contractor, you're just an employee in a different category. You're not actually setting up as a provider of a business service or product.
You sound like an advocate of IL-35, mate. I think you'll find that contractors are operating as limited companies, and they provide a service for a limited period of time to an individual client.
No, I understand that. But and I get why that happens, and I'm not commenting on that. I'm just saying that when the people who are starting out on that journey of, okay, I've left university, I can't get a job, the economy looks shit. What do you know? You know, I've just moved house, right? And this is a story I haven't shared with the channel yet, but when we were leaving the house, and one of the things that we did is that we hired a professional cleaner to come around on the outside of the building to just take care of the patios and some marks and the windows, and just make sure the house is properly clean, right? And this guy is booked out. He was, I'd say, late 20s, early 30s, on his own, van, kit, efficient.
And good money in it.
And I was like, this guy's going to go far. He's
Yeah.
just cleaning for a living, but for himself, not as an employee. Because do that job as an employee and you're going to get minimum wage, right? Do it as you got your own van, your own stuff, and you're cleaning houses of people coming to the end of a tenancy. He's rushed off his feet, right? He's in a much more secure position than the employed equivalent of that, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, mate, listen, we've gone 10 minutes over time. I'm not sure. Yeah, there's Sasha's watching. I know a secret way of how you can avoid paying stamp duty. Unfortunately, I can't tell you the secret biz of an court injunction.
Yeah. Hello, Sasha. Hope all's well.
Yeah, we got to do that. We got to get Sasha. So every time, Sasha, I say to you, "Hey, come and join. Are you free tonight?" You're like, "No, I'm too fucking busy. I'm too fucking busy." And then here we are.
Like when I'm not fucking busy.
You could have fucking joined and fucking spamming away in the comments. Yes. It's Ed saying, "Hey, Sasha, you got a few mentions from Charlie. Are you going to do a joint podcast? We have done one together, 3 of us in person. That was great fun. Yeah, bad internet. We'll do it again soon, I hope." There was one other comment I saw which I thought was really good. That's right. Empty Space on YouTube says it's the flow of repeating cycles, and when we live is utter pot luck. You've said
100% Empty Space. It is the accident of birth.
Yeah, absolutely is. Have you got any parting thoughts?
No, probably more Monty Python quotes. You utter bastard. But aside from that, not really.
He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy.
Naughty boy. You see, our education wasn't wasted. We did spend all of that time at school watching Monty Python.
Oh, why is there none of that? If I ever make enough money, by the way, best agent works, so I make enough money, I want to make films like the Monty Python films used to be again. I don't care if no one comes to see them. I just want to make them. It'd be so much. That was their attitude. Did you know that all the studios turned them down? The Life of Brian was rejected by everyone except for, do you know who funded it?
No.
George Harrison, the Beatle.
Fantastic. You got to like a bit of George. He was always a quiet one, but there was something there.
Most of the best films were turned down by the studios, and then some random person did that. But yeah, right. We're starting to ramble utter crap now.
Yeah, we should probably sing them out with "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life."
I would love to do that. Next time that you're here with wine, unless you're volunteering to give us a rendition, I'd love to hear that.
No, I'll tell you what. I think with wine is probably best.
With wine and when we're in person, because otherwise it won't be in sync anyway.
Cool.
Everyone, listen. Thanks for watching. If you want to get my weekly newsletter on the housing market, join the mailing list there, mhwc.co.uk/newsletter. Otherwise, thank you all 1,500 of you for watching at the moment across all the platforms. That's nuts. Listening to us two old posh twats.
Surely they've got better things to do with their lives. Cheers, everyone.
Have a good one, guys. See you next one. Bye-bye. Wednesday evening, I've got Dan the Surveyor Man, Wednesday evening at 8. Wednesday workshop, weekly at 8. Daniel Knight, Surveyor.